Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of XV the podcast. My name is Isaac Atumbi, alias King XV. So today I want to be talking about the topic forgiveness. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of talking about this because I know forgiveness is way harder in practice than in theory. But let's try. So I asked AI to define forgiveness. And I loved the response it gave. It said, forgiveness is the deliberate decision to let go of feelings of resentment and anger, or the desire for revenge towards someone who has wronged or hurt you, even when you feel justified in holding those feelings. It does not always mean forgetting, excusing, or reconciling, but it means releasing the emotional burden and choosing peace over retaliation. Okay, now very fascinating definition, but it left out the fact that forgiveness is one of the hardest things to do, but yet it's one of the easiest lifestyles to adopt. That's if you can. So I'm not going to dismiss the entire parts of where in offenses they can be so grave that they can be traumatic and trigger PTSD and whatnot. So I'm not going to dismiss that. That's very, very valid. Let's be honest, some people's audacity will actually shock you. It'd be they really had the guts to move that mad with you. And then there is the roller coaster of ego, pride, self-respect. There is hurt, betrayal, and sometimes even deep pain that you're still feeling. Genuinely, it's one of the toughest places to be, especially if you're in touch with your emotions. Certain offenses aren't just quote-unquote offenses. But then over time, I've noticed three kinds of people when it comes to forgiveness. The interesting ones, I must do my own back people. They don't believe in forgiveness. Their mindset is, you hurt me on purpose, so I'm going to give you a taste of your own medicine. If you hurt me and I hurt you, then we both heal together and it's all balanced. It's an interesting perspective, honestly. And then we have the detachers, those who detach. These ones won't really give you an inch of their emotional or mental real estate after you offend them. Instant detachment. Their motto is ignore and move on. For them, it's about protecting their peace. It's efficient, but I don't think it's really healthy in the long run. But then the third one is the one I'm most interested in. That's those who actually believe in forgiveness. They do feel the pain, they do feel the hurt, but for them, forgiveness is always on the table. Especially when there is genuine remorse from the other end. An apology helps soothe the wound, but the decision to forgive is key. Now here's the truth. It is established that we cannot move through this earthly plane. We can't move through life without actually being offended. So I don't really care about the offender in this conversation. People would always offend us. That's human nature. So it's a fact. Now what I care about is the person carrying the burden of forgiveness, because that's where the real struggle lies. Well, I think it is a necessity. There are lots of ways to get to a place where you can become a forgiving person. I am of the opinion that everyone should be a forgiving person. Now, it should be a first-person flow, really, regardless of who. We can get to a place where forgiveness is always on the table, no matter how hard it is. It's even harder when the person who offends us isn't sorry. Imagine having to forgive someone who hasn't even apologized, who hasn't even seen what they did wrong, and even if they've seen it, they still feel like they don't need to apologize for anything. And you're there hurting and being pissed and being angry, but you're meant to forgive that person. So it's I'm just trying to express how difficult it is. And I know that almost everyone listening to this has been in this situation before. Now see, I don't think forgiveness should always be intimate. Inherent, yes, but not always intimate, because genuinely, if, according to the Bible, that if we forgive someone 70 times, 7 times in one day, at some point it stops being intimate and personal, it becomes instinct. It's not really a choice. I mean, you did the first, second, third, fourth 770 times, and at some point I think it stops being about you and it becomes what I just do instinctively. And that's like a place everyone should aspire to get to, because generally I don't think anyone wins in a war where like resentment is the sword and spear. I don't think it does. The reason why, I think another thing again is the reason why a lot of us believe being a good person doesn't pay is because we've anchored our reward and satisfaction center around reciprocation. You want the world to be good to you just because you're a good person. Okay, I was good to you, so you have to be good to me. It almost never works. People won't necessarily be good to you just because you've been good to them. It's messed up, it hurts, I know, but that's the way it works. They say you won't expect a lion not to eat you just because you've been good to it. But rather, be good because it brings fulfillment and it makes you innately happy. I mean, be good because God demands this of us and we want to make him happy. Be good because the recipients of your goodness should be largely inconsequential. So whoever you're being good to should not matter as much as the act of being good itself. I don't know if that makes sense. I mean, so I think it's the same thing with forgiveness. Forgive people even when they are not sorry. Especially when they are not sorry. And I'm not saying it's like always going to be easy, but if you center your reward system on self-satisfaction and fulfillment rather than reciprocation, then I think forgiveness, kindness, and every other quote-unquote ness would be worth it like 1,000 times over. And then like there is the Christian parts of life that we must live by, where we forgive much because we have been forgiven much. And I think sometimes we forget that in our walk with God, we too offend him and yet he forgives us. We have been forgiven in excess. We have been forgiven so much. So it's up to us to also forgive. In the Lord's Prayer says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. I mean, Christ forgave us countless times, so why don't we do the same? There is a scene I love from The Choosing where Peter talks to Jesus about forgiveness. I think I'll just play the audio so you guys can listen to it.
He sins against me 7 times and I'm supposed to just forgive that.
Not 7, but 77 times. Completion times completion. Endless forgiveness without limits.
I'm still human and I can't do it. I can't.
I know it's hard. Man makes it much harder when he leans on his own understanding.
Okay. First time I watched that scene, it did move me. I won't lie, it actually moved me. I won't say it moved me to tears, but it moved me. Now, I think lastly, there is a common misconception that forgiveness erases consequences. Honestly, they are not the same, and they are not mutually exclusive. I believe in consequence. I believe in letting someone face the results of their actions. And that's not hatred, it's justice. And justice is not necessarily a bad thing. Justice is not a bad thing. Forgiving someone doesn't mean you must keep them in their life. So forgiveness doesn't necessarily erase consequence. If a relationship is broken and can't be repaired, it doesn't mean forgiveness still can't be in the equation. You have forgiven the person, but then that relationship is done and over with. I mean, those are part of consequences. They really have nothing to do with forgiveness or not. And especially when the offense or what they did was like serious, and if repeated, it can like really harm you. I think that's where protecting yourself comes in. I personally believe consequences. I personally believe Consequences are how the world maintains order. And if they are withheld, that's mercy. But I don't think that necessarily makes consequences bad. I mean, they exist for a reason. So basically, the summary of my whole quote-unquote talk is I would really want if we can get to a place where our hearts are freed from the shackles of unforgiveness and resentment. I don't know if this sounds narcissistic, but forgiving someone shouldn't really be about the person. It should be about you. I think if you understand the concept of self-satisfaction and self-fulfillment, then you can just anchor the reward of forgiveness on those rather than on the person that offended you. So really find it in your heart to forgive someone. I mean, just think deep down. And I think the thing, how I measure resentment is if you're able to talk about what happened and talk about the person who offended you without any sound of resentment in your tone or in your voice, then I think that's one way to gauge how much forgiveness has been implemented. And there is also, healing is different from forgiveness. You can forgive someone and then start your healing journey. But unforgiveness itself is a prison. I know we've probably heard this a lot. It's a prison and you're the one holding the keys. And genuinely, I believe that. And I think it's like really, really hard to do. But it's very possible. Very, very possible if we anchor our reason and our rewards for forgiveness on something other than the person who offended us. So find it in your heart to forgive. It's in you. It's not something that is beyond you. And if it's difficult right now, you can take it one step at a time and eventually you're going to get there. Well, thank you guys for listening. Peace out.